Hi, I'm Kirsten, the Ectopic Pregnancy Support Podcast host. Thank you for listening, and I hope these stories and conversations bring you comfort and help you feel less alone. Enjoy this episode. Hi, Francene. Thank you so much for being here.
Hey, I'm so excited. This is a huge honor to be able to speak with you and discuss this important topic. So thank you.
Yes, of course. We were just chatting, and I was reminiscing on the fact that you were one of my first Instagram friends that I connected with based on our topic. So I'm really excited to have you here, and we have a lot to discuss. So let's start out with where you're from and when you met your husband, when you got your married, and all of that.
Yeah. Thank you again. So Francene Davidson. I am originally from Scotland, although my accent is very deceiving and it probably will not come out, but you will hear certain words. So we moved to the US nearly 11 years ago together for work. We both work in the oil and gas industry. And I have been with my husband for, oh my gosh, I think it's like 14 years now. We knew each other at high school, but we were not high school sweethearts. I knew I wanted him and liked him. I'm sure I was an insignificant person in his life at that point, but I was persistent and I persevered. And then we went on a date, and then it was ever
The
since
rest
that.
is history.
Exactly. It worked out perfectly. So persistence is the key. Don't give up. We moved out to the US. Um, and it's been awesome. So we live in Houston, Texas. I'm still not used to the heat, but I try. So it is definitely way hotter than Scotland, but I will take the sunshine over the rain any day. And then
Yeah.
we do have a 7-year-old daughter, Luna Rose, who is amazing. And I feel very fortunate to have her in our life. So, yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Amazing. I love the name Luna. And I must say, I had no idea you were from Scotland.
Yeah, very deceiving, right?
Yes, I had no idea you had an accent or anything like that until we started talking.
Yeah, whereas my husband, he literally sounds like he's from Scotland. Like he has not lost his accent at all. So good for
Oh.
him. Clearly, I'm one of those people that wherever I move to, I'm like, ditch the accent.
I can definitely hear it though with some of the words you say.
Yeah.
I love it. It's so fun to hear accents. So, when did you have your ectopic? Was it after Luna was born?
Yeah. I guess just before I go into that, I will say that when we had Luna, it was one of those, which now I'm going through infertility. It was a stage where we're like, oh my God, will we have a baby? And immediately, boom, pregnant. And it was certainly not plain sailing. I had like morning sickness throughout, and it was not just morning, it was all day for the full 9 months. But I had no true understanding on like the difficulty or truly how it could be for people who it's not that easy. So I feel going into that, I don't think we truly appreciated how easy that was. And it was probably when Luna was 3 years old. We were like, okay, are we gonna have another? Like, let's try. And that was one of the things I was like, oh gosh, I shouldn't have waited. I should have just tried. But I mean, hindsight, you never know, right?
Never.
So we tried for a good number of years. I feel like we've been in this process. And I had before that happened, I did have, I think it was maybe 2 or 3 miscarriages, but they were very early. Um, so Already I was like, okay, this is not easy. This is not going our way. And I feel like it kind of immediately gave me the fear on this isn't going to happen. And, you know, um, every month you're kind of like, am I pregnant? Is it like my boobs? Am I feeling it? And then you're like, no, of course, my period comes.
Mm-hmm.
Or your period's late and you're like, oh my God, this is it. And the amount of money I've wasted on pregnancy tests is just ridiculous.
Oh my gosh,
Uh,
they're so expensive, and that's
so
something I
expensive.
never had top of mind.
No, they're so expensive. And like, I don't know if anyone else can kind of relate to this, but I literally got to a point where I had the fear of even taking a pregnancy test. Like, I got to a point where I was like, okay, well, if I go long enough, then I'm pregnant. I clearly know I've missed my period. And I would just wait it out until something happened. And inevitably, something happened. Um, but when that happened, it was September 2022. So it was coming up to like 3 years ago now. And I remember falling pregnant. I had gone in to my OBGYN, gone through all the kind of normal, like, yep, you're pregnant. Um, but I started spotting,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, immediately I was like, well, that's it. I've miscarried. Um, so I went back in and I was pretty persistent with my OBGYN. Um, and she kept on turning me away, being like, yep, you're probably miscarriaging. They were checking my HCG levels,
Mm-hmm.
which were going down. But now, obviously, being a female, where like our intuition is like, nope, something's not right here. Because although it was dropping, it wasn't significantly dropping. And I literally kept on spotting. And this must have been, I was like maybe 7 weeks pregnant at this point. And this went on until I was, I think it was maybe 9.5 weeks.
Okay.
And I'd gone into urgent care, like hospital, 3 times. They'd done ultrasounds. They were like, yep, you're miscarried. Like, I honestly was like, there's something more happening. I was
Mm-hmm.
cramping. Um,
That's
so
such a
that,
common denominator with a lot of our stories is we know our bodies
yes,
best, and we will tell our care team that something's wrong, there's something going on here,
yes.
and a lot of times that just gets missed.
Yeah, or it's like I honestly felt like I was just being ignored.
Hmm.
Um, but I remember we were about to go to a trip to Austin, and we had family coming in town from Scotland. And again, I was like persistently bleeding. It was uncomfortable. That the night before, I said to my husband, I'm like, you know what? Let me just go to a different hospital. Let me just second opinion, like worst case scenario, they'll send me home, but fine. So I went, and this time I was like persistent with, I want an ultrasound. And when they were doing it, I was like, a lot of times you don't see the screen. Not that I have any idea what is on the screen, but I
Right.
was like, I want to see it this time. So I was looking at it, and I saw that there was like, she was like, oh yeah, I think it's a cyst. And I was like, okay, well, it's a pretty sore cyst. Like, clearly,
Yeah.
there's something more going on, right? But I remember seeing the image, and it kind of looked like a halo around a circle. And when I was in the waiting room, I was Googling, and I know that the medical professionals are like, do not Google, it's the worst thing you can do. But I did. And I remember seeing that a lot of times in an ultrasound, you can mistake a cyst for that type of pregnancy because of how it looks and how similar it looks. So immediately I was like, hey, I think it's this. And they were like, no, it's not. It's a cyst. It's going to go away. And they sent me home. So I called my OBGYN, and I was like, this is what I saw. I feel that there's a strong possibility it's this. Anyway, she was like, no, you're basically being overdramatic. So anyway, we went to Austin, and like 2 days into a trip, I woke up at like 4 a.m. in the worst pain. The worst pain. Like I was pacing around the bedroom and I was like, this does not feel good. And again, this spotting was like not, it was like a heavy period. Um, so I woke up my poor husband, and he was like, what's happening? And I was like, I'm gonna go to urgent care. This is not good. So I drove, went in, they did some tests, and immediately this doctor was like, we need to get you in an ambulance. You need to go to hospital right now because your tube has ruptured and this is not good. And of course, naturally, my 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 mental state was, oh, well, I'm sure it's not that bad. So let me just drive back to the hotel, get my stuff, and then we'll go to hospital. And he was like, no, 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 you need to go right this second.
Oh my
um,
God.
which, yeah, the blasé-ness of like, oh, okay, I feel like I'm in shock now. It will be fine.
Yeah.
Um, it was
At that point,
crazy.
so you went to urgent care a couple times.
Yeah, it was like, this was like my fifth time.
Yeah. And so during your Googling, did
Yes.
you see an ectopic and ever
Yes.
have, okay.
That was basically what it said it was. And again, I kept on pushing it and they were like, no. So when I went into that urgent care, they were like, we think this is what it is and you need to see urgent help. So I ended up going back to the hotel, and my husband was, and we also had my daughter there. So
Mhm.
fortunately, we had family. They took my daughter. My husband drove me to the nearest hospital and they were expecting me. I went straight into surgery, like straight in. It was exactly that. My tube had ruptured, so I lost my tube. And yeah, like again, I'm conscious of like saying things which could be like triggering to people, but like the worst part was like waking up and like the doctor being like, yeah, this is what it was. It's unfortunate we didn't, get to it earlier. And I was like, oh, my God, this easily could have been prevented. And then just knowing that, I think, and I don't know if you're the same, but like a lot of people, there's such a education around what it is, and the fact that you have no choice. Like it is not viable. There's nothing, you will die through this, and the baby will also not survive. Like it is not viable. There's a reason why they state that. But what's interesting is in all of the medical documentation is like they refer to it as like an abortion, which like freaking broke my heart. And it's just interesting, again, like the lack of education and just how things are referred. And
Mhm.
then I think when you explain it to people, they're either like, oh, it's a miscarriage, and oh, like so many people go through this. Or you have some of those very uneducated individuals who are like, how could you do that? And you're
Yeah.
like, well, you think I wanted this? And I
Yeah.
had it twice.
Oh,
And that's
I
what's
feel like
sad.
it is very sad. I feel like everyone that'll listen to this episode will relate to what you just said because you're right. I mean, some people are just, there's the lack of education around an ectopic and the severity of it.
Yes.
And it did take me a while to understand that, what I had to do was considered in documentation an abortion,
Yeah.
but it was to save my life. It had to be done in order
Yes.
to keep going.
Yes. Yeah, there's no other option. And I think that, and again, like for me, there was no, it was such a rushed, like we need to get you in. Like there was no time to think about it. But it wasn't until after, and like the doctor came and spoke to me, and I just fully just broke down. It just made me so sad to think that, I tried for years to have a baby, and I was like, oh my God, I had one. And it was in the wrong place. And I was like, we can't move it.
Right,
And you start
right.
asking all those like questions because, again, like I never even heard of this.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, I mean, it, and I think this is where, like you mentioned, like how we got connected. Like one of the things after going through that is I was pretty quiet on like going through miscarriages, but for this, and especially at the time, from like a government and political standpoint, it made me want to speak out more and educate on, hey, this is what this means. And yeah, it just made me want to speak more about it. And I think I will say, finding your account and seeing how you've built this community like has helped me so much put things into perspective, like see other stories, um really know that there are others out there. It made me feel less alone, and that was like the beginning of me really understanding this and I guess dealing with it. So
Hmm.
yeah, you've been awesome. Like you really have, and you
Oh,
probably
you.
helped so many more women than you even like consider. But that really helped me. It really did.
I'm so glad. And I mean, we're connected because you shared your story on Instagram, and it, it connected us. And it was such a meaningful relationship at that time and still now.
Yeah.
And I also remember feeling the need to speak about it during that time. Um, I think it was maybe in the midst of Roe v. Wade, and
Yeah.
so
Exactly. Yeah.
many, yeah, so many thought it was a black or white conversation, but there's so much gray in between the black and white, and it's not just the conversation of pro-life in any sort of case. There's so much more to it, and I think that is one of the reasons why I was so vulnerable about some of the things I was going through. And, you know, everyone that's gone through this uh, can relate to everything that you say, all of the emotions, all of the opinions, all of the triggers too.
Yes.
It's wild.
Yeah, it really is. And like I remember um like speaking afterwards to the doctor in Austin, and again just feeling kind of frustrated, hurt, upset, all the kind of roller coaster. And I remember saying to him like, oh my God, I went to see my doctor so many times. I brought this forward, nothing. And it was literally at that point with Roe versus Wade. And I remember him being like, well, unfortunately, you could have been in a situation where they just didn't want to deal with it. And he was like, it's sad to say. And he
Yeah.
was like, versus, and again, not truly going into like all the politics and everything else. But Austin is very different. And just seeing the instant um like help was
Hmm.
wild to me. And I think that was another, I guess, for me, political trigger on I got to talk about this, and I want to make sure everyone in my network is aware of what I went through, what this means, how it can affect other people, and how different it is to what you said, that black and white. Like it is not black and white,
Mm-mm.
and this is like our bodies and our health, and like that's what's so concerning, right? And we all pay a lot of money for medical insurance here that I want to make sure I get the best.
Yeah, 100%. And the fact that the statistic is 1 in 80,
Yeah.
that's very high.
Yeah,
So,
that's very high.
yes. So you sharing this with your network and me sharing it with my network, there are many women in those groups that have had an ectopic or will
Yes.
experience one. So
Yeah.
speaking up about it is important. to better the outcomes for them.
Yeah, agreed. And the other thing I found, and again, I know you kind of get this naturally through the community you've built, but is the more I've spoken, like it's a weird thing because you're so vulnerable, whether you've gone through a miscarriage or this, or you're just having like infertility, like issues, it's not going well for you. It's the minute you speak up, it is wild how many people close to you are like, oh, I've gone through something similar, or I've had miscarriages, or we're struggling. And it's like the minute you open that door, you're like, wait, now our relationship is at a different level. Like we're truly like being open with one another. We're being raw with like the imperfections in life. And I think growing up now, not trying to sound like super old, but like I didn't grow up with social media. It was when I was older, and you see it now. And I feel bad for anyone kind of growing up um, around this at the moment without being able to kind of split that, hey, this is not necessarily real. But you think about everything you see on social media, and everything just looks so perfect. And you see these like pregnancy announcements and everything else, but you've no idea how long it's taken those individuals to get to that point. And I always try and have that perspective without it triggering me. So then you're like, well, man, I'm really happy for them. And, if that happens to them, I really hope it can happen to like us one day. But I think that's the hardest thing, is like opening up that, hey, let's just be real. Let's
Mm-hmm.
just like, not every marriage is perfect. Not every, job is great. We all have those great days, down days. And for me and my girlfriends, I'm like we've created space for those raw conversations. And that to me has been so much more helpful throughout this process, is just talking about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying about social media and how so much perfection is
Yeah.
portrayed in it. I will say I love that there is a slight shift happening in people sharing very raw and vulnerable things. I mean, even just the topic of stillbirth, I know, completely different situation and whatnot, but I feel like even in the last year or so, I'm seeing way more stories of that on
Yeah.
social media and spreading that sort of awareness. And of course, miscarriages, and there's more public figures talking about their pregnancy
Yeah.
loss, whether that's an ectopic or a miscarriage or chemical pregnancy or whatever. I feel like there's so much more awareness on these terms, and I think that is very powerful.
I agree. Yeah, I agree completely. And again, I think for people who haven't or can't relate, I appreciate the education around it. And then for anyone who has gone through something similar, there is just something very comforting in a way of knowing you are not the only one.
Mhm.
And for me, it's also following people's journeys and then seeing when things do work out and being like, oh my gosh, that gives me hope, right? And okay, we just need to keep on persevering. And that is another reason why I appreciate like following like your account and other accounts where it really does give you that hope versus creating a very negative space around you. And it's the hardest mindset to continue that optimism when
Mhm.
you've been through hardship, right?
Yeah, totally. And I've noticed the positivity from you, and I'm thinking of an instance when I finally announced that I was pregnant with my
Yeah.
second baby, and I opened up on Instagram about me being aware of the community, and I wasn't sure when or if I was going to share it. And when I finally did, I understood that this could be a trigger for my community. And I waited, I don't know, I might have been 7 months pregnant or so by that
Yeah.
point, but you responded to me and you said, you deserve all of this right now. This gives
Yes.
all of us hope. And I
Yes.
truly appreciated that so much. And I did find that out after sharing my story of conceiving after an ectopic, that there was so much positivity, and I thought there was going to be negativity, but seeing the positivity around it and just giving the community the thought that there could be light at the end of the tunnel for them, that
Yeah.
really made me feel really, really good.
Yeah, and so it should. And again, that just shows the group of people who you have
Hmm.
like surrounded yourself with. As much as, it's uh, like it is hard and it does take a long time to get to that point. And I'm sure some people are listening. And if we were going to be really honest with ourselves, I can tell you that there has been so many baby showers I have missed at work because I I just couldn't. To be honest, I couldn't. And it wasn't because I'm not happy, or it was just being in that scenario where, of course, everyone starts, chit chatting. And then you get the natural questions on, when are you guys going to have another one? Or even to me, I actually find it triggering when I hear people ask people that aren't even me, like, well, when are you guys going to have a baby? And TikTok and, all those like things. And I'm like, that has been one of the things over the last number of years that I don't put myself in a situation that's going to not make me feel good. But of course, I can still extend my support. And I will say I'm more like that with work because I guess it's easier to have that boundary versus, some of my best friends have gone and had babies, and I have not been any more happier for them. But I think being able to create certain boundaries around it helped me, to be
Hmm.
honest. And it's, I'm happy, but there's still a component naturally that you're like, why can't this happen to me? Why can't we be pregnant together? And this is great. And I love this. But it also, then you have the hope of like, okay, that this can happen, you
Hmm.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I'd say it's okay that you set those boundaries, because those boundaries are needed in this type of situation.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to be selfish for your own mental health and for your own situation.
Yeah.
So I commend you for saying no to certain boundary or certain baby showers, whether
Yeah.
that's with work or not. There's a couple that I follow on Instagram, Alex and John, and they're influencers and have a really big following, and they lost their son. I think it's actually their 1 year anniversary today, but he was stillborn, and they've been very open about the grief, and they recently released a short film regarding her thoughts around going to a friend's baby shower, and truly just highlights all the different emotions
Yeah.
for a woman going through pregnancy loss and the tie to the baby shower. And I'll have to send you the link because it's
Yeah. Please
really
do.
great. And I think you would relate to it, and everyone else listening would relate to it. But yeah, it just made me think of it as you were talking.
Yeah. It's hard. And I think to your point, you got to do what's best for you. And that could just be in that moment. It could be in that period. And I think, being open with your partner about how you're feeling. Cause I mean, my husband is like the best human ever. Um, And he has been so optimistic throughout our infertility. Like he is truly, and what's interesting is like, I feel like I'm a really positive, optimistic person. And I would say probably more so than him. But I have needed him to be the extreme of like, this is going to happen, everything's great. It's on, as we've kind of continued to look at like different options, he has continued to be that person that's like, no, 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 this is going to be it. And I feel like you also need that. But I have been very open with him with, my fears and just kind of how I'm feeling about certain situations. But he has definitely balanced me out. And I think for anyone, again, kind of going through this, you can sometimes feel very isolated, and you also don't want to sound like, oh God, am I constantly just being like depressed about this? And I don't want to be pessimistic, but you got to be honest and open, because it's the only way that will help you move through your journey in your own pace. And I think having that strong partner and going through it together and being really open with like, hey, this is how I'm feeling about this. And you might not be able to relate, but like, this is how it feels, the best way I can describe it. That helps significantly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. That's so true. And you need that support system. And for a long time with certain friends, I get the question of, how are you doing? How are you today? And, I just always felt like I was always like telling them I'm
Yeah.
going through this and I'm trying this test. And I, you know, got a negative test today. So I'm feeling down. Like I felt like I always had something on the more negative side to say. And I
Yes.
felt like it was a burden. But
Yeah.
to your point, you have to be honest and open. You can't keep it inside because it's just gonna bury you further.
100%. And like we were kind of chatting pre this call, but one of the things I was saying is when I was going through a lot of this early on, I was probably more closed off just on like the miscarriages and just kind of some of the things. And then I kind of got to a point where I'm like, no, I'm going to be more open about this again publicly to an extent. And then like we have continued to like look at other options on, okay, we want to have another baby. What does that look like? And I have a good friend base, but I have some significantly close girlfriends. And I've been so open with them, like throughout all the tests, everything we've looked into. And they have been amazing with, like, hey, here's some of the things that we tested for. Ask for this. And this is what worked for us. And not everything is, cut and paste that we can do the same. But having those discussions, and I will say my husband was the same. And that kind of surprised me, because you always think with guys, they go out, they have beers, and you're like, what did you talk about? And they're like, oh, sports and, you know, whatever was like happening. But what I love and respect my husband is he also was going out there and doing the due diligence and coming back and being like, hey, did you know that, this couple went through IVF, or they did IUI and they did it 4 times, and then they were successful. I'm like, oh my God, wait, how don't I have a consideration that of course you're going through this, and
Mhm.
of course you're trying to deal with this the best way you can. It's not just me. But we did decide to pursue IVF after going through so many tests, and doctors being like, you guys are fine. And I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean we're
That's
fine?
so hard.
Why is
That's
this
so
not
hard to
working?
do. Yeah.
Um, and it's not been the easiest. And I appreciate how um like how grateful we are being able to go through IVF, because I will say it is expensive, especially if your health insurance does not cover, it doesn't cover even a portion. It is not something to tread kind of lightly. Um, but being fully transparent, we are very lucky that like my company offers a benefit to an extent. And we were kind of like, why would we not try this? Um, so yeah, that's something we've been kind of working through. And even going into that and not truly knowing a lot of people who have gone through IVF, I've truly relied on Instagram and videos and hearing, people's kind of perspective. But it's interesting because I thought it would be a lot more like physically draining just with the injections and the tests and everything else. And although yeah, that's for sure being a factor, to me it's being the um emotional I don't know, piece where it's like every week to me is a checkpoint. Every week I'm like, okay, if we get to the end of this week and everything is good, perfect. So I'm literally a week by week. Whereas again, I go back to my comment about my husband. He's like, no, everything's great. It's perfect. He's literally into like the future of like, we're giving birth and this is happening. And I appreciate it so much. But that has been my biggest change is I have to go piece by piece. And it's like I can't let my mind go further because I don't want to be disappointed. And I think, you know, like my perspective of having Luna, and again, I don't say it lightly that it was very easy to us at that point to now going through what we've gone through and seeing how different I feel about pregnancy and each of the milestones.
Mhm.
It's sad in a way that,
Mhm.
and I think I remember you touching on this, like going through pregnancy, it's like you have this fear, if you will, like throughout,
Mhm.
versus I look back with Luna and I was like, man, I was so carefree and I took everything for granted because I was like, of course everything's going to be okay. I don't know any different. Whereas now you're like, oh my God, every feeling, e- everything that happens, every test, you're like, this is it. And
Yeah.
it's sad to me, but
Yeah. I do think going through a loss strips away all of that excitement that
yeah, it
could
does.
possibly be there. Because you really just realize how much of a blessing a baby is and
Yeah.
how much science goes into making a baby.
Oh yeah,
And
it's incredible. And the timing, I mean, gosh, I didn't even know like truly like ovulation and stuff. And I'm like,
yeah,
wait, it is like physically impossible to have a baby. Why did no one tell me this during my 20s when I was like, oh my God, we can't. I don't want to get pregnant. And you're like, well, it's impossible. So
it's so true. I mean, they teach you how easy it is to get pregnant.
yeah,
It really isn't that easy. And
at all.
the
No.
worry just never goes away. I think there are certain checkpoints and milestones and things that you can do to ease your worry. But yeah, it's constant. And like you said, that it's completely different than if you get pregnant and it was on a whim and it it was just easily done versus it was a journey to
Yes.
reach a baby.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And that is the one of the things that, again, having Luna, it was as much as of course we wanted another, but I would always go back to, oh my God, we're so lucky. And let me tell you, I felt a lot of gratitude. I've always been that person that will kind of reflect at the end of the day and be like, oh my gosh, like pinch me. We live in the US. How freaking cool. Or, whatever it is, not just materialistic stuff, but I always have that moment with my husband that I'm like, oh my God, this is our life. Like, whoa. But even more so, like whatever happens, I'm like, oh my gosh, we're so lucky we have Luna that to me that's all that matters. And like I just can't express that more. And it gives me more appreciation of what others go through without kind of having that. And trying to be a kind of advocate in this area and creating space for these conversations, and everyone is so different what they're going through. But I think, yeah, I feel very lucky, and I will never take that for granted, as much as we're like, of course we'd love to have another one. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. So when did you start IVF?
Yeah, so we started actually straight away this year. Um which again, you mentioned like the science. Oh my gosh, like who thinks of this stuff? Like who it is the craziest experience, just on I can't believe this is something we can do. So yeah, we started at the beginning of the year, so kind of going through all the tests, doing the egg retrieval, and then just kind of getting your body ready for the implantation. And even that piece, like I literally could speak about this like all day, like just watching the doctor put in the smallest egg, if you will.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, are his hands still like how? I personally could not deal with having the pressure of being the person to do that. And
Oh,
we
yeah.
are fortunate that our doctor is incredible. But just I couldn't even watch it, to be honest. My husband was like, "Oh my God, look at the screen." I'm like, I can't. Like
Oh,
this is wild that we're even able to do this. But yeah, so um like yeah, we're continuing to kind of work through that journey. And I will say, without hopefully it will be the same kind of response as I had to you and others, and it kind of gives people hope. But we are officially 12 weeks, and I couldn't be
yay!
happier.
I know. I'm
Literally couldn't
so
be happier.
yeah. I'm so happy for you, and I'm
Thank you.
so glad that it worked and you made it to 12 weeks, and it's just it's something to celebrate for sure.
Yes, 100%. And like I said, I still feel each week is a milestone. But I finished my injections on Sunday, and let me tell you, those injections sucked.
Oh,
It was progesterone. So anyone that's listening to this that has gone through it, it's like an oily substance, and you have to take it every day and inject it yourself, and it hurts so my body is like swollen. But again, I'm like, I will do anything in order to work through this process. So I joke, like, truly there's no complaints. But to me, that was a big milestone. I was like, okay, we're done with the injections. Okay, we've hit 12 weeks. And to me, it's like each week after that. But I really, and who knows what's going to happen, right? But I think you still have to celebrate those moments of getting here. And that's, I'll hold on to that and be like, okay, it's fully possible. um but again, I appreciate being able to kind of go through this process and get to the stage we're at, and I just have my fingers crossed it
yeah.
continues.
Yeah, I'm going to keep my fingers crossed too. And,
Thank you.
when I hit the 12-week mark with my rainbow baby, I bought my own Doppler for at home just to give myself some peace of mind. And I had my doctor show me how to use it properly. So every day, my husband and I would lay in bed and listen to our baby's heartbeat. And that was only for a small period of time, because
Yeah.
once he started moving in my belly, that was a lot of reassurance.
Yes, that is, I think once I will get to a mental state of, oh my gosh, this is real. But I think I'm probably going to do something similar, because one of the added benefits of IVF is you have a scan every week. So
Oh,
I've been so lucky. Every week I have seen the baby. And now I've kind of graduated from IVF. I'm going into like OBGYN, which, by the way, I changed my OBGYN from the initial one, just to clarify.
yeah.
You got to make sure if you're not getting the treatment, go find someone better. Um, but yeah, so now you're on to the schedule of like 12 weeks, 16 weeks, 20 weeks. And I was like, how am I going to go without?
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to do something similar, because it is
Mhm.
that paranoia of, is everything okay? Like, how
Yeah,
not be that paranoid person and just annoy my doctor every week and be like, can
I
I
know.
see? But I don't blame you for doing that. I think I will do the same.
Yeah, it helped me, and I know other women in the same circumstance have done it.
Yeah.
But it just helps ease the worry and anxiety that
Yeah.
may pop up. But I'm so happy for you. I
Thank you so
mean, that
much.
you've been on a journey, and your story will definitely give others hope.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And thank you for giving me space, not just today being able to kind of talk about it and actually get to like talk to you, because I know we have DM'd a lot, and again, like we followed each other, but just in general, like I cannot emphasize like you being able to create space, and even just some of like the questions you do and like seeing other responses. Like, it is so awesome that you do this, and you're helping hundreds of women. And whether they are talking directly to you or just seeing your posts, I promise you're touching a lot of people and you're making them feel better. So thank you, because it helps people like me want to talk more. And yeah, I really appreciate it. It's not an easy subject. None of this is, you know, uplifting, if you will. Um,
No,
but we gotta speak about it, and I appreciate you.
thank you. That means a lot. Thank you for listening to the Ectopic Pregnancy Support Podcast. If you are looking for additional resources, head to ectopicpregnancysupport.com to learn more about my exclusive online support chat. Also, don't forget to follow me on Instagram and Facebook. See you next time.